Welcome to Code with Kamate. This is the channel whereby we are always exploring different programming languages and dealing with different frameworks, majorly for web development, as a way of making coding easier and coding smarter but not harder. So today we are going to be exploring a Python framework that we call Django. Django is a Python framework that we use to build the web. So it is based on Python as a language. And if you are new to Python, then you have to go and you check my playlist for Python basics, because if you don't know Python well, it is very hard for you to come here and build these web applications. You need to be knowing the basics. So this is Code with Kamate series, and this will be a playlist which will be having different videos. So before we dive into building our first application in Django, we have to first understand what Django is, how it came about, and understand a few basics. Then from there, that's when we can be able to go ahead and build our first Django project, as we shall be able to do today. So to start with, Django is a high-level Python web framework. So as you know that Python is a high-level language. It is not a machine language, no. It is high level. So this framework is majorly built on Python. So it helps developers to build web applications, and normally they are always speed, secure, and scalability, meaning that they can support a very many large number of clients or users at the same time. So Django is a very powerful web framework for building web applications. So it is also built on the principle of don't repeat yourself, as we looked at into our basics. Yeah, when you're writing your code, you don't have to keep on repeating yourself. Yeah, so why does Django exist? It came majorly to solve two problems. One, the developers, before they could build the same things in every project, you find you are building something, maybe it's a function to calculate the total amount of money a client or an employee earns per month. You find you are calculating it in this project, the other project will still recalculate it, which is not the case with the Django. It comes in to solve that. It makes things faster and cleaner, so the development process becomes simple and faster. Yeah, so it also has tools like user authentication. This one helps you manage users who are accessing the system, database management, admin panels, URL routing, and templates. This is uniform resource locator. Yeah, we are going to go through this as we create our first project today, so that you can understand them in action. But all of these features are provided by this beautiful framework called Django, built on Python. So what can Django do? So it can build blogs, e-commerce platforms, dashboards, APIs. APIs, these are application programming interfaces. They are apps that will link into other apps, yeah, to improve functionality. We shall be looking through all these as we develop our apps. It does support front end, that is the HTML and CSS, so it supports both of them. So you'll also need basics of HTML and CSS, which is not all that hard. Very soon I'm launching a framework on HTML and CSS, and the link will be available in the description. So it also handles the back end, that is Python and databases. It also handles large scale systems with millions of users. So it is a very, very powerful framework. It also works seamlessly with mobile apps via this API called the REST, as we shall be able to look at as we go forward with our playlist. So what are some of the sites which are built on the Django? We have Instagram, Pinterest, Mozilla, very many of them. So out there, there are very many apps or web applications that are running on this framework. So it is a very good framework, and it is very important to know it as a Python developer. So what philosophy should you know, or what is major on the Django? One, there is fast development, so you build apps quickly. We have clean design, so your code is organized logically well. Security, by default, your apps are well protected, as we shall be seeing. The security is very, very high. Scalability, it can grow from small projects to global platforms, like we saw that even Instagram runs on the Django, and it sports billions of users, and I know some of you are on Instagram. Very soon I'm joining Instagram. Please don't hesitate to click the follow button. Okay, so what are the aims of this series or this playlist? One, we shall understand how the Django works from the ground. Okay, from there, we shall also learn to build the real world project step by step. And as you know, normally when I'm handling a playlist, I do go with projects one by one to make sure that you understand what you are learning. That is one of the characteristics of me when I'm making these series. So the other thing, we explore user authentication, database models, templates, and more. We shall also have deployments of live projects which will be live online by the end of this playlist. And we shall also build a complex project that will wrap up everything we shall have covered in the Django. So what are the next steps right now? We are going to set up the Django and we build our first project right now. Then the other thing, don't forget to follow up with the playlist, because each video will be building from the last. So when you come in from like the fifth video, it will be very hard for you to catch up unless you know some basics of the Django. So you have to keep following up as videos gets uploaded. Follow them up so that you don't get left behind. The other thing, there is a link to a document which I've annexed in here in the description. Yeah, it is a good one because it explains further, because you know here these slides I've made, they are not all that many to explain the Django, but I have annexed that PDF file which you can use to understand more and more. Yeah, so let's build our first project now. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more tutorials on Python, Django, and full stack development. So let's start with our very first Django project. Welcome once again. So to start with, we are going to create a new folder where we shall save our project. I can create it on desktop and I call it the Django basics. So let me open it. So it is the Django basics. I've named it the Django basics as a folder. This is a folder where we're going to have all our Django files or our today's Django project. This is where it is gonna be, excuse me. So this is where we are going to have our Django project. So now we can drag and open it in Visual Studio Code. We shall be using Visual Studio Code. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, you can download it from code.visualstudio.com. You can download it for your operating system. So let's drag this folder and open it in Visual Studio Code, or the other way of opening this folder in Visual Studio Code, it is by using a terminal, especially if you're on Windows 11. You just open up a terminal and you run this command, code with a dot. So this command means that when you write code, you're opening Visual Studio Code. So when you put a dot, you're opening the current folder in Visual Studio Code. That is what that command means. So let's give it time to open. Wow. So now the Django here, our folder has opened. Our Django folder is here, the Django basics. So this is where we're going to create our Django files and our web app. So after we having done this, let me close this. Welcome. Okay, fine. So let me also close this terminal here and this PowerPoint. Okay, fine. So here we're good to go. So now the first thing we do, we have to install the Django because it is a framework. We have to first install it onto our computers. How do we do that? We can use the built-in terminal for here in the VS Code. There is a terminal that is built in. When you come on these three lines and you go to terminal, there is always that option of new terminal. So we can click on new terminal and it's going to open down here. Then when the terminal opens, let's give it a second to load. Yeah, it's loading up. It should bring something here where we can write our commands. So VS Code is trying to configure some things. That's why it takes time when you just open up your project for the first time. So I don't want this caplock. I don't know where it is coming from. Okay, sorry, let's reopen back the terminal. Let me close this one. Okay, fine. So the terminal is now open. So the first thing we do is to install the Django. Install the Django using pip install the Django. This is the command we run. So what is pip? Pip is a library that has very many frameworks. So when you want to install a certain framework, you just use pip install the Django. But now for me on my side, I already have the Django installed. So when I press enter, let me expand my terminal a bit. So here it is trying to check out, because for me I already have it, it might not be able to install it. But for you, when you don't have the Django already installed, it is going to load some files and then install it. So you see they are telling me that the requirements already satisfied, but on your side it is going to download. So let it finalize. Normally when a command is running, it finalizes by bringing back this line you're seeing here. Okay, yeah. So now since the Django is already installed, most of the times when you install the Django for the first time, normally some commands don't run automatically, because when you are installing it, it is normally saved in a directory such as this one. Okay, so when you install it for the first time, they normally give you a warning to tell you that you have to add it to your environment variables. And how do you do that? You copy that directory which they are giving you where they have installed the Django, and then you open settings. This is just to assist you in case you get issues when you are running out, like you fail to run some Django commands because it is not properly configured in your environmental variables. So after we have run out, after open our settings, we can search for variables, and we can click here on edit the system environment variable here. Then from there we can choose environment variables here at the bottom. Then from there we can double click on path. Then after double clicking on path, this is where we click on new. We click on new. Then we paste in what we have copied. We paste in the directory that we copied. If you can see, like for example, if mine was in this one here, it is down which I copy, then it is down which I paste over here. In environment variables, it is this one here. Yeah, I paste it here. As you can see here, I already have this file. If you can go to edit it, you'll find out that it is in app data, roaming, Python. So it is where it is installed. Those scripts, that's how normally we configure it. Yeah, so in case you get any confusion here, you can Google it out and see how to configure that, or use ChatGPT to understand how to configure these things. Yeah, but now let us dive deeper into our project. Let me close these sub windows here. So back to Visual Studio Code. So we already have our folder called the Django Basics, and we already have the Django installed. So here we are good to go. So the first thing we do, we create a Django project. Yeah, that project we can call it, it can be like the name of our website you want to handle. For example, if you are building a school management system, you can just call your project like school. Or if you just call it any name based on the type of project you want to make. So how do we create a project? Since our Django is already installed, I have zoomed in so that you can be able to see well. So we run the Django admin, then start project, then we put on the project name. So project name, this one I can call it, let me call it my first project. My first project. Then we add a dot at the end. So this dot is specifying that we are starting a project called my first project in the current folder. That one is very important, because normally if you don't add the dot, it is going to create a duplicate folder within your Django basics folder, and it is going to become hard when you are running some Django commands. That's why it is always encouraged that you have to put the to make sure that you are instructing it to create it in the current folder. So after we press enter, then you wait for it to start the project. Normally when you press the enter, you're going to see that app being opened over here. So if you expand here, we are going to find out that it has generated very many different files. So I'm going to explain each of these because these are core in the Django. They are very important. So now what we have created using the Django admin to start the project, this folder here which has been created, we call it the main app. The main app which normally has settings to other different apps which you might create. For example, if this project was maybe a school management system, we would maybe have something like students, teachers, have lecturers, and all the other apps around here. So they are all managed in the settings.py. That's the first thing you have to know. Then this init dash init.py, let me, I think, reduce this terminal here like this. Okay, fine. So now this init.py, it is a file, it is an empty file as you can see, but now it being empty does not mean that it is useless. It is very important file. It tells the Django that this one is now a project which you can use to import different apps into it. So when you delete this, it will be very hard for you to import different apps. For example, on the school management system I'm giving as an example, if here you have students and maybe this one was about to like uh, lecturers or teachers. When you delete this app, you will not be able to link students with teachers because you might need to assign different teachers to different students in their classes. So when you don't have this app, things will not be able to work. That's why it is always created automatically. Okay, so we also have this file and this one, these two of them, sgi.py, which contains some of those codes. Most of the times when you're a beginner, you don't have to edit this. You don't have to edit this unless you're an expert. Yeah, so this one and this one, they work when you are deploying. When you are deploying your project. So when you deploy our projects, we shall be able to configure some of these. But for now, we are not going to change anything. And as a beginner, you are not advised to change anything in this app. Then we also have this app, this file called settings.py. So settings.py is a very important app because it contains settings that run our Django project. It has very many settings like debugging. It allows us to add hosts. This is when we have deployed and we want to allow some hosts like maybe www.school.com to access this project, all that. It also allows us to register different apps. We shall go through this as we go forward with the deployments and the other apps. So you'll be able to understand dealing with templates, all these ones, you're going to handle them. So databases, all that will be covered over here. So now that is the basic about the settings.py, but the more we develop apps, the more you're going to be changing some of these things and you understand them better. So for now, don't worry. And I know sometimes you get confused. I remember the first time I saw these apps running all the time, I was almost seeing it as if I will never understand. But the more you develop apps, the more you keep on understanding and configuring them. Actually, they are not hard, but you just need to keep on practicing them, practicing and practicing every now and then. So let us also go to urls.py. So urls.py, this one is going to help us when we want to configure the URL patterns. Yeah, this one we are going to use it soon in the next minutes. Then we shall be understanding more things about it. Okay, so now going forward, we are going to have a preview. In most cases, when we are running our okay, sorry, I forgot mentioning about manage.py. So manage.py is also an important file which also you can't edit at the moment, but we shall, this one normally you can even develop the whole application without editing anything from it, because it just helps us to run different commands to create other apps, create databases. As we shall see, we shall be using it, you'll be able to see how it works. Yeah, so I had forgotten about it, but at least I've tackled about some things more about it. So the more we go forward, the more you're going to keep on understanding these things deep and deep, and please keep on practicing it. Keep pausing and do what we are doing together. So now I was on urls.py that it is done, that is due to configure different URL patterns. And when I was mentioning that, I mentioned about something concerning preview of our work. Normally, when you are developing something like HTML or any other thing, it is always advised that you preview it in a browser to see how it will be looking like in case you have deployed it to the users. So that one we do it using a local host. I hope you know that. A local host is just you create something like a link that you can access your project live. So how do we do that? So in our terminal here, we are heading back to our terminal. We are going to run Python. Now we are going to call the manage.py, because as I said, manage.py is the one which is going to be helping us run different commands to help that we are going to be building our application. So Python manage.py, then there is a command called run server. So when you press enter, it is going to check through this project and see if it has no errors. If it has no errors, then it is going to run it on a particular port so that we can see the preview of how the app looks like. I hope we are together. So in case you feel like I'm faster, you can always like take back the video to understand more, but at least I'll be able to make sure that everyone is understanding everything. So I'm trying to scroll upwards to check from where we wrote our command running from here, python manage.py run server. So after running python manage.py run server, we got very many things here. So performing system checks, this is checking through the whole application to find any errors, because if it has errors it will not run. You need to debug them. They'll show where the errors are and debug them off. So they are saying and apply the migrations. These ones we can ignore them for now, but these ones they are just help us to create databases. So for now, we are not going to handle anything concerning them. The Django version, everything. So even they are saying that this is a development server. So this one we just use it. The server they are creating for us at this port. So this is the link. We have to click on this link. Now the server they are creating here is for development purposes only. So when we are producing this app, or when we are deploying it, we cannot deploy it on this localhost. No. So that's when we come to configure the sgi.py and the wsgi.py. So let us click this link, or you can copy it and open it in your browser so that we can see the preview of our application. So mine is opening in Microsoft Edge over here, and it is saying, wow, the install worked successfully. Congratulations. So the Django now has been installed successfully. So this is the default page you see when you have just installed the Django, as we have done. So we are now going forward to now configure out different things. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves when we are running the Django projects, remember this 1.12700 at port 8000 is, can see that is like the home page. But now when we are developing apps, the first thing we ask ourselves, remember as I said, we're going to create our first app today to see how the Django handles configures all these things. So the first question we ask ourselves when we are developing in the Django is that when we are here on this address and maybe someone slashes to home page like this, that is the first question we ask ourselves. When someone slashes to home page, what should happen? So when you press enter here, of course you will not get anything. You will not get anything because nothing is there. But now we want to go into the Django framework, and we said that any request that is asking for home page, it should be handled in which way, or what should happen when someone just loads this and slashes to home page? That is the first question we ask ourselves when we are developing in the Django. So let's go back to our code base. Now I want to turn this one down a bit. Wow, good. Okay, so as we are still under urls.py, as I said, URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. So under Uniform Resource Locator, it is where all the requests from the web page come to. For example, this request of slash home page. Let's go back a bit. This request of slash home page. It will automatically, when it is called, it will automatically come into, it will come to look for slash homepage in URL patterns in our urls.py. That is the first thing you have to put in mind. So that's how the web works with the Django. So if someone comes and maybe slashes to contact us, so the request will automatically come into urls.py and look for slash contact us. Then it should be given instructions on what it should do as soon as the user has slashed into that specific page. So currently, for purposes of practicing and developing our first app, we're going to be like someone wants to slash to home page. So if someone sends a request to homepage, what should happen? That request is going to automatically come into urls.py here. So it needs to first find a pattern that was defined already, showing that if someone has slashed to homepage, this and this and this should happen. So what should we do? Remember, we already have our path admin. This one we can first leave it for now. I'll get back to it about why we need it. But majorly, to give you a highlight, it normally handles the admin panel, the authentication part of the Django. But for now, let us leave it like that. We are not editing anything, but we are adding another URL pattern, such that if a path or a request comes and this request is coming with a home page request like this, okay, when a request comes from here as a slash home page, it will automatically come into urls.py of the main app and then check whether it is available. If it is available, what should happen? Because it has to be handled, because it is a request, it has to get a response. Okay, because right now when you run it over here, it's going to tell you that wait a second. Okay, fine. It can't run because already we have not yet configured this, but it would say that it failed to get the page. So when we slash to home page, what should happen? Now in the Django, we have a special configuration or a special file that we call views.py. The views.py is the one which handles all those requests. For example, request comes here. After it finding out that home page is there, it has to call a function in the views app, because views is the one that handles all functions within the Django projects. It's actually the one which you find that it has a lot of lines of codes, because it's the one which handles that. So what you're going to do, when someone has requested for the home page, we should call views dot a certain function which is going to handle that request. For example, views dot home. What does this mean? This means that when a request comes from here, request comes from this side, it is going to come directly into urls.py. After checking through urls.py, it is going to find out that yes, that path exists as homepage slash. Now, what should happen? Now, this request should be handled by a function called home, of which that function is in views.py. So I know when these things it is your first time to hear them, they're a bit confused, but that's how the logic of the Django works. But when you understand this, then everything becomes fine. Remember, if you don't understand anything, you can inbox me via email and we can have a live session chat so that you can understand better. But that's the logic. The logic is a request comes directly from the home page, from the browser, like for example, slash homepage or slash about us /jobs. Then that request is automatically brought into urls.py of the main project directory, which is here. Then it is always handled by views. Okay, views is a file which has to be created within these other files. It has to be created. So that views is having a function called home. So home is a function in the views.py. So that function is done, which is going to handle that request and provide something to a user who has requested for that page. I hope that is clear. So now, what we have to do, one, we have to create this file called views. Right now, they're underlining it with the gray kind of, because it is not imported. You have to import views. But before import views, you have to create it. So we shall come in our folders here, in our files, we create a file and we call it views.py. Press enter. So this is our views.py. Then we can go into our URLs back and we find out we have to import now the views. We have to import it from the top here. Can just say from the current folder. Current folder is a dot. When you say from dot, that means the current folder. So from the current folder, this is the folder here of called my first project. We are importing views. Okay, so you can see that when we do so, automatically this one, which was yellow underlined, automatically turns to be okay. So that is in brief how the system works. So when a request is coming from home and the request comes here, what is going to happen? It is going to come directly into our urls.py, look for home page. After getting home page, then it is going to look for views.home. So it means there is a function called home which has been created, which has to be created to handle that request. Okay, so let's go and we create this function in home. Hope we have done functions already in our previous tutorials in another playlist. That's why I told you that you come here when you know some kind of Python. So come here to views, then under views, we now create. Okay, let me remove this. Okay, fine. So we define a function called home. And this function will always take up a request because this request is coming from a browser. So it is always a must. The function has to take a request. So after doing that, this function, it should return something. Remember, functions in Python, they do return specific value, or maybe it is a block of code that helps us to do something, to do a specific task. So that's why we are returning. So what is this function going to return? It is going to return a HTTP response. So what is HTTP response? Remember, this request is coming from HTTP. This is a HTTP request from this side. So as soon as it comes and lands into views.urls.py, it's going to find out that there should be a function called home under views. And when you click here, when you press Ctrl and click here, I think it takes you here directly. So it is going to return HTTP response of, for example, hello world. Okay, but still HTTP response is underlined, so we have to import it. Why do we import? Because we are using different modules built into the Django. So we have to come here and we do what? We import HTTP response. So from the Django.http import HTTP response. Okay, this is how we do it. So, and you see it has now changed the color to now it has changed the color already. Okay, so this is from the Django.http we import HTTP response. Okay, after doing so, we are now going to let us get our terminal. Normally, after configuring out different stuffs, it is better to open a new terminal or cancel it, because these configurations, or when the request is coming, you need to find when it might fail to run. So you are always advised to run a new terminal. So let's get a new terminal here. and we run python manage.py run server. So we're going to run the server to check the feedback. Let me close this Microsoft Edge. Fine. So let us. Okay, fine. So after it has run, we just pick our development server here. We click on it and we run it. So when we run it, we are going to get page not found. But why we're getting page not found? It's because our settings, we are from setting in our URLs that something which is requesting for home page should be the one to display the hello world message we have configured in views.py. So when you go into home page, that's when we shall be able to see this. Okay, so this is the difference. So now it means that when you go to our real home page, which should normally be like this, we are going to find out that that page is not found. Why? Because when the request is coming, it is going to look for slash home page, because we have not decided, we have not indicated that it should not find any. Whenever you don't indicate anything like this, just the request coming, when the request comes like this, it is going to automatically, that will be the home page. That's when it is going to open the home. Okay, that's when you can see the hello world. So basically that's a few configurations you can do with the Django. Understanding how we link URLs, how we work out with the views.py. Yeah, those are the basics of what you have to learn. So practice this very well, because in our next tutorial we shall be having other apps. We shall create more apps here. So when you don't have the knowledge of how to configure these simple things, it is going to be very hard for you. So yeah, I know it is not all that grasp all these things together, but the more you practice them, the more you understand. So create a Python project and try it out by yourself. And the other thing, and as you go forward, we are going to, yeah, to configure all these things, so you will be understanding as you go forward, but try to practice. So allow me end this video here, and I wish you well. Don't forget to subscribe. See you later.